friends, this is Blake with the Bee Supply here. Let's talk about your first inspection home with your new bees. Now, getting your bees home, it may feel like bringing your baby home from the hospital for the very first time. It's like all of a sudden all that reading, all those classes, all that training just kind of goes completely out the window. I remember when we brought both of my girls home from the hospital, it was like, oh my goodness, I don't remember a single thing about that child rearing class that we took. So this video is to quickly and succinctly tell you the main things to look for once you get your bees home and you need to do an inspection. Now, you may have gotten a nook and installed it. You may have got a complete hive. You may have a package. This is a complete hive, and this is about a month-old complete hive. So it's got a lot more bees in it than a normal complete hive would. It's ready. This hive is ready for its next box. So if you open up your hive and you see bees wall to wall like this hive covering the top bars, you're ready to add your second box. As a general rule of thumb, once you've got your first box is 80% full of bees, so you look down between these frames and they're full of bees. Once it's 80% full of bees, that's when it's time to add your second box. Now, the main thing to keep in mind is you will need to feed, and so you should be feeding your hive about once a week. Most new hives drink about a gallon of syrup per week when they're new. And when I'm doing an inspection, my very first one, I'm really just looking to make sure that the queen survived the trip and that they look okay and they have the right amount of brood and the right amount of honey. You may see some of this burr comb on the top bars. That's completely normal. That's actually a good sign. It means the hive's pretty healthy and they're healthy enough to draw out excess comb. I start with the second frame. The first one can be kind of stuck, and I'm just going to pull out the second frame. I'm going to take a quick look, and I'm just looking for a few really quick things. I mean, this one you can see this shimmering nectar in it, and you can see that we've got some orange pollen. So this is pollen, this is nectar. If you're unsure what's what, just dig in with your hive tool. If it's liquid, see, that's a liquid. That's honey or nectar. If it's a solid, like a doughy solid, well, that's pollen. If it's a white larva, then that's brood. So the bees will quickly clean up whatever mess you make and repair it, and you're good to go. I set this frame aside. I just lean it up against your hive stand, so that I've got plenty of room now to work. You can keep smoking your hive every 30 seconds or so. Whenever the bees get in your way, you can smoke them a little bit. And then I look at the next frame. Especially since this is a new hive, getting adjusted to their surroundings, I'm not going to spend more than, a couple minutes looking through it. You can do longer inspections later, but try to get through it in, 5 to 10 minutes the first time. So this next frame kind of looks like it's mostly pollen and nectar, but I've actually got some brood right here. So if I move these bees out of the way, I've got this larva. So you can see that white larva. Isn't that beautiful? That's larva that they're getting ready to cap. And then there are eggs around here. Now, eggs are really hard to see. Now, I actually think that the lighting is just perfect enough in this video that you probably can see those eggs. Now, it's way easier to see on this black foundation. They look like little grains of rice. But if you can't see eggs, don't worry about it. Look for brood. Now, this is a tiny little patch of brood. I'm sure we'll see more brood as we go along. Do not feel pressure to actually see the queen. The odds are, as a new beekeeper looking through your hive for the first time, you probably will not see the queen. So don't put your pressure on yourself to find her. You just want to see brood. So this is all brood. So beautiful frame of capped brood. This is all capped brood. Now we've got some nectar up here in the corner, but this is a beautiful frame of capped brood. Again, if you're unsure what's what, you can always uncap a little bit of it. And you can see that we've got white larvae underneath these cappings. So uncap it if you're not sure. It won't, it's not a big deal to uncap a little bit. And so I've got lots of brood. I've seen a little bit of larva. I've got a good bee population. I want at least a half a box full of bees or more. I'm still seeing brood. You're going to see frames of all different colors. The older frames are darker, newer frames are lighter. That's perfectly okay. Frames age quickly. That doesn't mean they're not usable, but it just means that the bees walked on them a lot. And I've got rings of cat brood, and then I also have larvae. And again, the lighting has to be just right to see that larva. But seeing brood makes me happy. It means I know I at least recently had a queen. The last thing I'm watching out for is I'm making sure I don't have a bunch of queen cells all over the place. And those just look like they're kind of the size and shape of a peanut. And if I've got those, then it's a good sign. If I've got those hanging all over the place and I'm not seeing brood, it's a good sign that the hive is queenless. But if I'm not seeing those peanut-shaped queen cells all over the place, and I'm seeing brood, and then, you know, seeing larvae, so there's a shot, you can see that white larva right around all that brood, that's a great sign. It means I've got a queen, or at least did within the past couple of days. So if I'm seeing that larva, and I'm seeing, you know, a few frames of cat brood, I'm just going to feed this hive, and I'm happy. That's all I really need to see from an initial inspection. I'm usually going to do that initial inspection, you know, 2 to 4 days. Well, I'm usually going to wait 4 to 5 days after I get my bees home to do that initial inspection. Give them time to calm down and start raising queen cells if they did lose their queen, which makes it easier to identify a queenless hive. And then, you know, I'm going to come back in another 4 or 5 days after that and do a follow-up inspection. Always push your frames tightly back together when you're done with the inspection, because if you leave space, they will draw out honeycomb there, and we don't want that to happen. They'll draw out extra comb all over the place, and it'll make it very hard to pull frames out. So push tightly. I know it feels intimidating, but really give it some push. Push it tightly all to one side. And again, I'm going to be giving them about a gallon of 1-to-1 sugar water or syrup about once a week. And this one is ready for its next box because it's at least, like I said, 80% full of bees. So I'm going to give them their next brood box. It can be a medium box or a deep box. And I'm done. Simple as that.